Welcome to Atlantic Debrief, the video interview series, the podcast of Atlantic Council's Europe Center, where we discuss the most pressing, the most important issues shaping transatlantic relations. I'm Ilva Tare, a resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council's Europe Center, and I'm thrilled to have a distinguished guest with us, Rafał Trzaskowski, the mayor of Warsaw, Poland's vibrant capital. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Recently re-elected as mayor of Warsaw after your first term in 2018, you are a key figure in Polish politics, having narrowly missed the presidency in 2020 as a candidate for the democratic opposition. From what I did, my homework, the recent polls indicating also strong support for you ahead of the presidential elections in 2025. I'll ask you about it during the interview. But before, I'm really eager to explore your insights on Poland's security issues, its role in NATO, in the EU ahead of the presidency early in 2025, and the future of Poland within the transatlantic contest. But I'll start with a first question. How has, in your view, the full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Putin's Russia changed the perspective of Poland in terms of security?
Well, we knew that we had to be tough, that we had to be determined vis-a-vis Russia because Vladimir Putin is a bully and he doesn't understand a different language. And we were warning our allies within the European Union that we need to be independent when it comes to energy, that we need to strengthen our capabilities when it comes to cybersecurity, that we need to take the responsibility into our own hands when it comes to strengthening ourselves militarily and strengthening the transatlantic relations, strengthening NATO. History unfortunately proved us right because all the things about which we were warning our European colleagues proved to be true. Now, of course, security is our top concern. This should be also the top priority for the European Union. I think that the whole world is watching us. We're in a sense passing a test. If we are going to still be determined and take the right decisions in supporting Ukraine in its fight for freedom, then our credibility will be strengthened. If we start wavering, backtracking, asking too many questions, then our credibility will be weakened.
How do you think the test is going so far?
I think that Putin has miscalculated on many different fronts. Of course, he underestimated the strength and the will of the Ukrainian people to defend themselves. But he also thought that just as in 2014, we are not going to react too strongly, that we're going to be divided, that there will be a lot of squabbles. And at the end of the day, yes, some European countries were dragging their feet, but we were determined and we were tough and we still are. And we are supporting Ukraine also with military equipment. Sometimes it takes a lot of time for us to take decisions, but we do it. I remember in 2014, I was the Minister of European Integration and we were preparing the first batch of sanctions against Russia when it invaded Crimea. And then our German colleagues were saying that actually sending helmets might lead to escalation. So we moved from that significantly, and that's good. We just need to be focused. We need to continue supporting Ukraine. We need to be more assertive, and we need to listen to our Ukrainian friends more.
How confident are you on the unity of Europe and on the transatlantic stance on this, considering the fact that exactly unity will be tested in the upcoming months?
Well, of course, a lot depends on the elections in the United States. And I trust that whoever is chosen as president will continue the policy of the current administration, because it's incredibly important to show determination and to confirm the words of President Biden that every inch of NATO territory will be defended. A lot depends on what's going to happen in Europe as well, because there is a certain vacuum of leadership now that Poland is trying to fill. But all in all, we, as I've said, we were determined. All in all, we are helping Ukraine as much as we can. And all in all, we stayed united. Of course, there are some grumblings. There are some signs which are worrying, coming, for example, from Budapest. But at the end, even Viktor Orban was towing the line. But of course, we need to explain to everyone that the credibility of the European Union as such is at stake.
What's Poland's perspective on recent developments in the Ukraine war, such as the recent Kursk offensive and discussions about long-range missiles?
Well, I mean, a lot of taboos have been broken because we were first discussing tanks, then we were discussing aircraft, missiles, and so on and so forth. That at the end, we've provided them for Ukraine because we need to do everything that we can to help Ukraine win the war. Of course, we're not going to get involved, but we should help Ukraine with instruments and with capabilities and so on and so forth. Because the Ukrainians are fighting for our freedom as well. We have been doing it, some of us reluctantly, but at the end of the day, we delivered, and we should listen more to our friends. I think that what they've done in Kursk surprised Putin. I think that more and more Russian people are starting to ask themselves a question whether this war impacts their lives. And I think that the Russian people should be asking these questions.
How prepared do you think Poland is to best defend itself from Russian hybrid warfare, such as the campaigns of arson or sabotage?
Well, we are determined. We are investing as much as we can in our military. I mean, we are spending more than 4% of the GDP. So we are the best pupil in the group. But of course, we are also thinking about the hybrid threats, disinformation, cybersecurity, securing our critical infrastructure, being more and more independent when it comes to the energy supplies. We have been doing it for the past 20 years. We have been trying to bring the whole European Union along. It worked to a certain extent. Of course, it took a lot of time. Even us, the local leaders, we're doing our bit. I've taken a decision to put additional money in order to strengthen our security camera center and our network, to strengthen the defense of our critical infrastructure, to create special warehouses where we are going to have all the equipment such as generators needed for any kind of eventuality. I'm not talking about a hybrid warfare necessarily, but even for things such as flooding and so on and so forth. We need to be ready for every scenario because war today is not just missiles and tanks, but it's also disinformation, it's also cyber attacks and so on and so forth, and they're happening daily. So we need to be resilient and we need to strengthen our capabilities in that regard.
My question was how prepared you are. I know you need
I think we're well prepared. I think that compared to some of our neighbors, we are doing a lot, both, of course, and mostly on a national level, because the deterrence factor and the message to Putin that we are prepared and that we know all of his dirty tricks is very, very important. So I would submit to you that compared to some of our allies and friends, we treat those challenges very seriously, and we are quite well prepared.
I was also reading in the international media about some specific steps that Warsaw is planning to take to ensure that 7 million square meters of potential shelter space are adequately prepared and equipped to meet the needs of the population in case of a crisis, including a nuclear one. What's your plan on that?
Well, we need to be prepared for every eventuality. I don't believe in a nuclear strike, but we need to be ready and deter. When it comes to military security, we were on the same page even with the previous government, which was a populist government with which we had very difficult relationship. But on defense, we were on the same page. Unfortunately, the previous government didn't do much when it comes to civil defense. We were asking them to prepare a bill which would give us the right definitions and give us grounds to take action. And of course, also, this is the responsibility of the central government. So pouring more money in order to realize that priority. Now, the current government, the government of Donald Tusk, is doing that. It has just finished preparing a draft law which would allow us to strengthen our capability in that field and also prepare for every eventuality.
And on the refugee situation, your city grew because of the Ukrainians coming once the war started. How are you handling that? What's the situation currently?
Well,
Do you need more help?
1.5 million Ukrainians actually went through Warsaw At a peak, we had 300,000 Ukrainians staying in Warsaw, which was 15% of our population. Now it's more than 120,000. And I'm talking only about the Ukrainian diaspora after the war, because we had some Ukrainians before that. We are coping. I mean, the most important thing is that our Ukrainian friends are incredibly resilient. Most of them work, so they contribute to the economy. We treat them almost like Polish citizens, so we've provided free education, free healthcare for them. As I've said, opportunities to work as well. We've enrolled almost 20,000 kids to our schools. And yes, we need support. We need support from the United Nations agendas, because UNICEF and International Migration Organization was helping us. Also with American money, because most of the money that America is channeling to border countries goes through international institutions. So it is absolutely crucial. And of course, the help from the European Union itself, also to secure the eastern border of Poland, where we have a hybrid warfare going on.
Are there any plans being drafted on their potential return to Ukraine?
Well, I mean, we do have a revolving door now.
Do you see their future?
We do have a revolving door on our eastern border, because depending what's happening in Ukraine, I mean, if it's winter, if there's escalation, if there's more missile strikes, more Ukrainians are coming to Warsaw and to other countries. Cities and countries. Now, many Ukrainians will stay, but of course, that's going to be their decision. I mean, we are prepared to every eventuality. One is that most of them will go back once the war is finished, but some will stay, and we will welcome them. But of course, as I've said, that will be their decision and theirs only.
To conclude with security questions, what is the nature of the threat that Poland's security has from Belarus? Is there a consensus in the government on the Eastern Shield project?
Yes, there is a consensus on the Shield project. We need it, and it should be a European project. When it comes to the border, I mean, the Belarusian border, I mean, it's as I've said, it's a part of a Russian and Belarusian hybrid warfare. Putin and Lukashenko are trying to destabilize the European Union. They're actually inviting and encouraging people to cross the border illegally, and producing a lot of problems for all of us in Europe. And whilst we need to have a migration policy, we have been working on it from 2014 onwards. Whilst we need to help Ukrainian refugees, we also need to defend our border in a tough manner.
Eurosceptics parties are still not to be underestimated, as seen in the recent European elections. Can Poland be seen as a reliable partner by the other member states, in your view?
Of course. At the end of the day, when it comes to defense, when it comes to security, we are on the same page, even with the populist parties. When it comes to helping Ukraine, we're all helping Ukraine. Now, of course, the populists are undermining our democracy, but we've won the elections, and we are strengthening Poland as it is. And when it comes to populism, this is not just a Hungarian or a Polish problem. We have that problem all around Europe. And now I would say that Poland is much more stable politically than some of our Western allies. So, of course, we're credible. The most important thing, as I said, I mean, on the most important national interest and on questions of security, we are on the same page even with the populists.
Poland also has been promoting the idea of European defense bonds. What advantages would this joint EU debt military investments have? Well,
of course, NATO. NATO is the most important linchpin of our security, but we need to do our job within the European Union as well. I mean, if you've read the Draghi report, which talks about competitiveness and so on and so forth, we need to invest more in our industrial base. We need to do more when it comes to our defense industry so that we do not duplicate what we do. And that's exactly where the European Union comes in. It is also about protecting our airspace. It is also about securing our border. And besides prioritizing the NATO alliance, which is crucial and clear that this is our priority, we need to do our job within the European Union as well. And also when it comes to other aspects of security, because as I said, it's not just buying equipment, which we do. It's not just strengthening our military in order to have a strong deterrence against Russia, which we do, but it's also dealing with other threats, such as energy, such as cybersecurity, and that's where the European Union is doing quite a lot in order to meet those challenges head on. Disinformation, a new reality connected to artificial intelligence. All of those things, we need to put our heads together within the European Union and with our partners, as we've done with the deal on artificial intelligence with the United States and with the United Kingdom. That's the way forward.
Poland will have an excellent opportunity to contribute to this while having the EU presidency in early 2025. And Poland is actually one of the countries that significantly benefited since joining the EU in 2024. And with its location bordering Ukraine, Poland, it's a vital voice, a critical voice in the European enlargement discussions. Will enlargement be an important part of the Poland's presidency in your view?
Well, we need to have a conversation about it, because with our partners in the European Union and with our... I don't think they're hesitating, but we need to have a frank conversation on how do we want to proceed. We've promised enlargements to the Western Balkans in 2003 at Thessaloniki summit. 21 years later, didn't materialize. So, I mean, if we are serious, we need to have a roadmap for Ukrainian and Moldovan accession to the European Union. It also necessitates some changes within the European Union when it comes to the budget, when it comes to the agricultural policy. It also necessitates a very frank conversation with our Ukrainian friends and with our Moldovan friends, because it's not going to be easy. I remember, I was part of the team which was helping and preparing the negotiations between Poland and the European Union. It was really, really a difficult process. So we need to openly speak about it with our friends within the European Union and with our partners who are about to accede in the coming years.
I noticed during this interview you mentioned several times the word frank and open. Why there is this need? Are there any countries that are hesitating to have an open dialogue and conversation about it?
Sometimes I have this impression that, decisions are being taken, but the ramifications are not taken into account. So that's why we need to remind our friends that if they take decisions, they have to deliver.
Okay, and I'm not going to ask about names of these friends.
Well, we can see quite clearly where there is a lack of leadership in Europe.
Okay, I'm leaving it there. How about your leadership? I said that in the beginning of our conversation that the recent polls indicate that you have a strong support to become president or a strong candidate for presidential elections in May 2025. Are you going to run?
Well, no one can question my determination, but that decision hasn't been taken yet. We are going to take a decision about our candidate as a political party at the end of the year.
Are you willing to?
As I've said, no one is questioning my determination ever, because whatever challenge I take up on myself, then I try to deliver. But of course, this is a political decision. And as I've said, we will take it in the coming months.
Thank you very much for that answer. And since we're in DC and having this interview here, what are Poland's view on the outcome of the recent NATO summit here in July?
Well, we are moving the ball in the right direction. That's the most important thing. And I think that everyone is waking up to this new reality and trying to up the ante and trying to be prepared. As I've said, our credibility is on the line.
Are there any key areas that need to improve, to strengthen between Poland and the U.S.?
No, I think that we are in dialogue. President Biden was twice in Warsaw. We just had the Secretary of State. Poland is a linchpin of European and transatlantic security. So we are having a very intense conversation about it. Our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Radek Sikorski, will be in D.C. in the coming days. Our president will be in New York. So those contacts are pretty intense, and they should be.
It's not very common for a Polish-American diaspora to be mentioned during a presidential debate, as it happened recently. Do you see a role for the Polish diaspora in these elections?
Well, the Polish diaspora is huge. Sometimes people say that there are, 10 or even more million Americans with Polish descent. And of course, for all of them, the questions of security are paramount. So I'm not surprised at all that the candidates are sending a direct message to the Polish Americans.
And last question, what issues would you like to be highlighted during the presidency, Poland's presidency of the European Union?
That's easy. Security. And of course, we are going to also talk about the next multi-annual perspective, which is the EU budget for the future, and has to be in sync with the priorities that we're going to put on the table.
Thank you very much for talking to Atlantic Debrief.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much for watching us.